All right, everybody. So what Sunday is it today? So this is why I got you to say that, just that I could say no. It's Inspiration Sunday.
Yep.
Why? Because, first of all, we're all heroes. Okay. Second of all, and that's not to give you a trophy just for participating. That's because you're actually a hero. And then the other thing is that it gets a little bit difficult when you've interviewed a lot of people. And people are like, well, I'm a hero as well. Why haven't you interviewed me? Because it's called Heroes Sunday. So you're saying I'm not a hero because you haven't interviewed me. And the answer is, no, you're a hero. We just can't get to everybody at once. And we've got to follow this theme and a structure and a plan. And so we decided to rather call it Inspiration Sunday because we can all be inspired. And we can all be inspirational. All right. This is like a podcast. So don't forget to hit like and subscribe. That would help us a great deal. Thank you very much. Thank you. So for the rest of the year, we're going to be doing a focus on love. You would have noticed, or you probably would have heard by now, that there are quite a few home groups that have started. Yeah? Anyone not aware of home groups starting? Okay, so there is a home group. Hopefully there's a home group in your area. It might not literally be in your area just yet. But find one and join, because this is not just about starting a program at all, not at all. It really is not. It's about building something that can hold even more between us. Like we are the building, we are the house of the living stones. I always think it's a bit funny that we are the living stones, but we are a house of living stones. And when we come together, things happen. Love is shared. We are building a house of love here. It's not about attending a Sunday service. It's not about attending a conference or anything like that. It's about being part of something that is alive and that is strong. And what makes us strong? In somewhere, Jesus said, they will know that you are mine by the way that you love each other. By the way that you love each other. Not by the way that you gather together, but by the way that you love each other. So, for today, I've got a few song lyrics that I want us to just kick off with. Let's hope I don't drop everything while I do this. Okay, you ready? Are you sure you're ready? Don't go quiet on me now. Just because it's a podcast doesn't mean I can't hear you. Okay. So I want to just read you some lyrics of the one you'll hopefully recognize. It's an old song by a guy called Nathan Drake. And it starts with, here is love, vast as the ocean. You all know it? Here is love, vast as the ocean. Loving kindness as the flood. When the Prince of Life, our ransom, shed for us his precious blood. Who his love will not remember? Who can cease to sing his praise? He will never be forgotten throughout heaven's eternal days. So we've just done breaking of bread, right? Why do we do communion? Jesus said, do this whenever you meet, whenever you come together in remembrance of me. So who his love will not remember? How do we remember his love? We remember his love through communion. Communion is, we've symbolized communion with the body and the blood of Jesus, the bread and the wine, but communion is much more than just sharing bread and wine in a ceremonial way. It's actually about coming together and being a meal of love. It's a new covenant meal of love. You with me? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that was the first one. The second one. Who ever heard of a lady called Misty Edwards? Okay, so she's from a little bit like earlier on, like early 2000s. She writes a song. She says, what does love look like is the question I've been pondering. You know, for those of you that know the song, you're like, oh my word, I can't help but sing it in my head. What does love look like is the question I've been pondering. What does love look like is the question I've been asking of you. She's talking to God. I once believed that love was romance, just a chance. I even thought that love was for the lucky and the beautiful. I once believed that love was a momentary bliss. But love is more than this. All you ever wanted was my attention. All you ever wanted was love from me. All you ever wanted was my affections. To sit here at your feet, then tell me, what does love look like? She goes down a little bit. She says, then I sat down, a little frustrated and confused. If all of life comes down to love, then love has to be more than sentiment. Right? It has to be more than sentiment. More than selfishness. More than selfish gain. And then I saw him there. Oops, there goes the Bible. And then I saw him there, hanging on a tree, looking at me. I saw him there, hanging on a tree, looking at me. He was looking at me, looking at him, staring through me. Okay, so just pause on that. He was looking at me, looking at him, staring through me. And I could not escape those beautiful eyes. And I began to weep and weep and weep. So this morning you might wonder, like, what does that have to do with the price of eggs, Ross? I've got Kevin and Natalie sitting here waiting patiently for their chance. And the point is that we are not sitting here just to tick some kind of a box. We're not sitting here just to do another Inspiration Sunday. We're not sitting here because we're looking for things to fill the space. We're sitting here because we must understand, we must discover, and we must learn together as a body, what does love actually look like? What does it actually look like amongst us? And we've got Jesus as an example, as the example of what he did. He poured it all out. But what I love about that song is that when we look into his eyes, we can't escape the love that is there. When I look into Natalie's eyes, Kev's eyes, when they look into my eyes, do they see that love? Have I made that love available to them? And have I made that love available to you? Are you making that love available to me? Because if I withhold my love from you, as my brother, my sister in Christ, I'm stopping the flow of that love. And maybe we've just, in the modern life that we live, got a little bit used to being like that. We've got our little segments of when we come together, we do what we do, but it stops there. And it doesn't necessarily flow with that quality of love. So, with that being said, Kev, Natalie, the reason I've got them up here, and I'm sure I could probably let the mic float around in the room right now. Those of you who know the Mortimers would be able to give me some good examples of what love looks like through their lives. And I assured them that this wasn't going to be an accolade ceremony, a prize giving, and award ceremony, but it is an example. And so I want to ask you, I want to hand over to you now. Kev, you can start if you want to. Otherwise, you can pass the ball. What does love look like in the Mortimer home? And I want it raw, like it doesn't have to be polished, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. What does love look like in your home?
I think it's ladies first.
Ladies first. That's a very chivalrous way to put it.
I didn't expect that question, so thanks for that, Ross. So I think
this is all impromptu.
Yes. I think in our home, love looks intentional, like making the effort to, like. Sorry, I'm gonna cry.
Crying is allowed.
So like, Sam was at the desk and I offered to make him coffee, and that's love. That was me being intentional and being like, I see you, and I've got a feeling that you might want coffee because you're at the desk, so you can't get it yourself, so I'll get it for you. So that's what love looks like in our home, is being intentional and like doing things for the other people in the home that you know that they would value and appreciate, and just doing that will hopefully let them know that they are loved
without those words actually being said.
Wow. So love is intentional. It's about being able to experience what someone else is experiencing without them needing to tell you, and then actually doing something for them. Not necessarily doing, but in this example, doing something for them that says, I love you, that carries, I love you, without words needing to be spoken. Did I frame that right? I mean, that's so practical. And, I mean, obviously, life happens, home life happens. It's not always easy. It's not always tidy. Sometimes it's messy. And how do you manage when things get messy in the busyness of life? How does that love in your home, how do you uphold or keep the love in the mess?
Is it still
Another impromptu question. It's either of you.
Talking about, Ross used the word messy. Yeah, I mean, as a family, none of us are perfect. So we all mess up. And it's just that relationship that we have between one another, and not taking the point of, yes, I have been wronged, therefore I'm owed something. Okay, it's that love is patient, love is kind. So yes, the other person has messed up. We still be kind and patient with one another. It's not take that step back and throw a tantrum. I've been wronged. I'm now owed something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so the relationship that you carry, the relationship that you've built over many messy days, some not so messy, over many days of very many different kinds. When something goes wrong, when something happens, when offense comes, when you are failed or when you fail in a relationship, the choice is to uphold the relationship before the offense.
Yeah.
And that swallows up the offense. Is that right? Wow. So, if we had to put that out amongst us, if this was a home, and we just had to take those first 2 points that the Mortimers have shared with us, the first being, love is intentional, it's looking, it's trying to find an opportunity to express something that I know you need without you needing me to tell it, or without you needing to share it with me, and to give you something, or to offer you something, or to do something for you, or to share something with you that says I love you, without needing to say I love you amongst us. So now we're taking something that's in a home and breaking it open like bread amongst us for what could that look like here amongst us? And the second point is offense comes. It's a guarantee. That's not good news, is it? Like if you're here long enough, someone's going to offend you. And we can all say, yeah, that's true. If you're here long enough, someone's going to offend you. Something's going to happen. Something's going to present itself to you. You're going to get overlooked, or you're going to get excluded by mistake, or someone's going to say something that's insensitive, or someone's going to be mean, because, like we're still dealing with some issues, and the offense is there. If you don't have a history together, that offense is going to rule you. It's going to exclude you, and it's going to kick you out the door. You understand what I'm saying? Or, if you've intentionally built history, when that offense comes, the relationship is going to consume the offense. So if you're offended right now with anyone, ask yourself, what kind of history do I have with this person? What kind of history do I have with them? If you don't have much history, then the offense is going to be very difficult to process, because you don't know what it can be swallowed up in. Has this relationship been a long relationship? Has it been loving? Has it been respectful? And now something's gone wrong? Then that's easy. Let the relationship consume the offense. But if there is no history, if you haven't built a history with that person, maybe it's an awkward call to start building a history with that person.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
I also find, so if Kevin and I are having a disagreement, or I feel like he has wronged me, doesn't happen often. No, but when I've taken myself into a quiet space, and then I'm processing how I have been wronged, I always come back to how Kevin has had grace for me in the times when I haven't got it right. And when I get to that point, it's then very easy to have grace for him in whatever the situation is. It's like he's patient to me, and he has forgiven me, and he has, like I said, shown grace when I am, when I haven't necessarily deserved it. So, and then it's like, okay, I can take a step back from how I'm feeling and my sense of injustice or whatever the situation is, and I can say, you know what, he has shown me grace, and now it's my opportunity to show him grace. And that just makes it a lot easier to put that feeling of hurt and offense aside. It's like, okay.
That's so good. Because what you're basically saying is, has this person ever had to forgive me?
Yeah.
And if you've got history,
Yes.
that's almost inevitable that the answer is yes. So, okay, if we now just zoom in a little bit to the Mortimer home as a ministry center. You all know we had Kevin up here not long ago for the Character Company. Do you remember that? Does everyone remember that?
Yes.
Okay. So he's mentored many boys. He's not just mentored them, he's opened his home to them. And they come and have sleepovers there, and it's not just one or two. What's the most you've ever had there for a sleepover at home?
I don't know, about 10.
About we're at 8
So 8 to 10
on Friday.
boys. Yeah, just now on Friday there were 8. So 8 to 10 boys that are not your family, not your physical flesh and blood family, who are beautiful boys who are in need of a father or fathering. And you don't just spend a couple of hours a week. That's already quite a big investment. But yeah, come have a sleepover at my house. Eat my food, swim in my pool, drink my cool drink, make mistakes, break stuff, be loud, be rambunctious. Don't you like that word? Rambunctious. Scott? And to me, that is such it's a sermon. It's a sermon of love. As one example. But without mentioning names, there have been other people that have been in need in some way. And you've just opened your home to them. And for me, that's like, I'm just being honest with you all, that's not something I've ever done before, where I've said, okay, you're in need, come and stay with me. Come under my roof and I'll look after you. Is it just me, or is that quite that's a big, I wouldn't even say a commitment, it's a massive gesture of love. So what does love look like? And these are people that are in our body. They've mostly been in our family, in our spiritual family. And you've opened up, and obviously we're not going to talk about names or anything like that, but how, as a married couple, have you been able to build that kind of shared, do we need to have a big meeting about this and decide, or is it like, yeah, okay, we're going to do this and let's just run with it?
I was actually thinking earlier, so when Ross approached me about being up here this Sunday, I said that Kevin and I both carry the same, our hearts in this is the same. And earlier, just during worship, I was just processing, and I was just thinking, Kevin and I don't know if you've noticed, but we are very different. We are we are chalk and cheese in almost every way, except for one, and it's this, that our hearts towards those in need is, God knew. We are, and so, because I think if we were pulling in different directions in this, we wouldn't have been able to do it, because one would have been saying, let's do it, and the other would have been like, oh no, it's too loud, it's too messy, it's too much, I don't have capacity. But the fact that we pull in the same direction in this it's such a blessing from God. So to answer your question, one of us will say, someone needs a place to stay, or there's something that is needed, and then the other person will be like, okay, and literally it doesn't take a week-long conversation. It's usually quick.
The phrase is normally, I've been thinking.
Yes, that's what Kevin says.
But I love it. It actually makes me think of that song. What does love look like is the question I've been pondering. I've been thinking. You're not really maybe saying that it's in the way that we think about things and about people. Because what would you say to a lot of us who we don't want to not be like that? And everybody's different, and I've got to be careful to not create like a burden of expectation that this is now what you should be doing if you are a loving person. You should be having guests in your house all the time. There should be a stranger there, a non-family member living with you all the time. So I'm not saying that, okay? But what about people sitting here that are feeling like they feel invited into a freedom of love that is that radical, that generous? Because there's a cost to that. There's a cost to what you're talking about now, a financial cost, a family cost. You think about the dynamics that it brings into your family life. You can't just be a nuclear family because there's always someone else there. There's a financial cost. There's a logistical cost, because now how do you fit all the cars in the driveway if there are cars, or how do you get this person to where they need to go in the midst of your school and work and whatever other routine? The cost is huge. So you've been thinking, like one will say to the other, I've been thinking. That's what you're thinking about. And in the midst of all of the cost, there's a need that is higher. You're seeing that as a higher need. How did you get there? What was the first time that you decided to not just think and actually do?
Before we got married, we were both in the UK. We were at a London church called Every Nation. And we had a fantastic pastor, Wolfie. And he was always encouraging us to walk in our dreams, to do what we felt God was calling us to do. And he would be very supportive in that. And it was something he was really great in. If it's something you want to do, go do it. We will support you. And it was in my heart back then to have in London, we used to stay in what we call digs. So it would be an apartment with maybe 3 or 4 or 5 rooms, and it'd all be different people. At that time, it was like the South Africans, it would be, we all traveling, we all working in London, we share a place, each has their own room, and take responsibility for the house, take turns in cleaning and all that kind of stuff. And it was my heart to have a room that we would have vacant, and to be ready to help someone in need who needed to step up in whatever they were struggling in, so that they could move forward in whatever they needed in life. And Wolfie said, "Yeah, fine. We'll pay the rent for that one room." So for a couple of years we had that, and we had people coming and going in this room. We'd support them, just love them, Again, just feed them, just be friends with them, encourage them, whatever area it is that they needed, that step up. And then when they were ready to leave, they would then leave, and then whenever God put on our heart for the next person, it was available. But when we got married, it was decided that we weren't going to carry that on, because just with being newlyweds and stuff, I think it was just a time for us, I think. And to
I
us,
said no.
yeah,
I was like, mm-mm. No. Newly married, we're not now,
Yes.
so put the brakes on.
yeah. But God had other plans. When we
Yeah.
came back to South Africa, that heart, I think, came up again,
Yeah.
and that's where it started again.
So we've been really blessed to have, we've got a granny flat, and we've had quite a few people coming through and staying in that flat that just needed a safe space. And in a lot of cases, it was just to recover, just to gather themselves and just to catch their breath for whatever situation they were in. And so that was quite nice because it was outside of our space, but it was still a very safe space within our space, if you know what I mean. So it was outside of our space, but still part of our space. And so, that was a real blessing, and I think it was such a gentle way to start doing it, so they weren't in our homes necessarily. We have now since had people in our homes, in our home, who have literally been, like Sasha's, bless my child, she often has to give up her bed. Not often, but it's happened where, people have come that have needed a space. And the last time it happened, actually, it was Sasha's idea. She said, I've been thinking. So and so the offer came from her, which I really appreciate, and I love that. So I think to answer your question, it was just like there was a need. And we had the capacity, and we had the space and the means to be able to offer that help. If we were in a studio flat and it was a family needing a space, then as much as your heart wants to, logistically you actually can't. So I think that just to take the pressure off, and we don't actually say yes to everybody. There are times when we say we'll pray for you, or we might know somebody else that can help. So we because we also need to create a boundary for our family. Our family time is also important. So and when people leave, then we also quite intentionally in spending time together and doing stuff to create like a buffer, I guess, in between people. But yeah, I don't know if I've answered you.
So there's a freedom to allow love to flow in the way that works best all around.
Yes.
And that's important. Okay, what you guys can't see, and I've got to say this, but what you can't see is the way that Kev is looking at Natalie when he's talking. And just the look he gets in his eyes when he looks at her tells me a lot about the reason their home is the way it is. So they're very different. Kev's very loud and out there, and Natalie's very quiet. So you might hear more from Natalie. In reality, you're going to hear more from Natalie than from Kev. But the look he gets in his eyes when he looks at Natalie is loud. Do you know what I'm saying? And so to me, that's what you share between you is the safe space.
Yeah.
So what I'm inspired by as we're sitting here is that love between us also creates love between us and others. So like you got, to use it, just to make my point clear, you got a Natalie and you got a Kevin. They each have the Lord living in them, and they are now a married couple. But the love that they develop between them becomes a safe place for others. And by sharing that safe place with others, it becomes an act of, an expression of love. Does that make sense? So the way we build intentionally between us, if what is between us is genuinely a love-centered, love-inspired relationship in the union of God, the oneness of God, it's only a matter of time before that becomes a love expression to those that have not yet been brought into that love. Does it make sense to anybody in the room?
Yeah.
Thanks, Natalie. 'Cause I don't want to be too deep, but I'm saying like there's a certain amount of it multiplies as we build love between us as a people. So okay, you've also started a home group now. Don't you have a home group running?
We've made it available, but no one's joined.
Okay, so the home is open, but no one has knocked on the door. Okay, I didn't know that. But there is a home group there. Well, there's a home and there's a group. Anyone who wants to knock on the door, you can make a home group. Okay, so the willingness is there, but that's why we're doing this as well, because when we decide intentionally to pursue something, it is going to cost us and it is going to change the way we do life. So, okay, it's not a very full room today, but Kevin and Natalie, they've offered their home for a home group. What day was it going to be on? Had you decided yet?
I think Thursday.
So let's say, for example, a Thursday at 7 o'clock. Do what you need to do. And I'm not saying this Thursday, and I'm not saying that it mustn't have a conversation first, because I don't know what the status is now. But join a group as an expression of love. Yeah. Not because it's going to be nice for you or easy for you or a gift for you, even though it is going to be all of those things. Join a home group as an expression of love. And that's not to also put any kind of horrible guilt on you if you can't. But can you really not? Michelle and I'll use our example, or our story. I find myself avoiding the word testimony sometimes because it's a little bit heavy. But our story is, okay, well, now there was going to be another group. And the Pretorius one was the closest one to us. And honestly speaking, I was like, oh, my word, do I actually have capacity to do something else in the week? There's already a lot going on, and it's, I'm busy in the days, and then after work, it's just so nice to actually just go and do nothing and recover. That was where I was at. And I didn't actually feel all that soft and mushy to the idea. But we've been going now for a month and a half, about a month and a half. Longer. 2 months, let's call it 2 months. And there's no way we're missing. Well, we're probably all going to miss at times, but it'll be for a very different reason to what I thought initially. Because when we are together, there's like a kind of meal that you have in love. It's not about ticking a box. It's not about attending a program. It's about what you find between you and others. How much like family you really are. How much you can strengthen each other and help each other. So we need to snap out of the apathy that says, there's no condemnation, there's no control, there's no guilt, there's no shame. Just do your life, man. Be you. No problem. That is most likely an expression of lovelessness. So it's going to cost us something to be in those kinds of relationships with each other. But the expression of love that comes from that is kingdom. It's the kingdom of heaven. And going back to that song, I was looking at him, which is Jesus on the cross, in that context. I was looking at him, looking at me, looking at him, staring through me. And I'll never forget the look of love in those eyes. Like if we had to do a little activation now, and we had to say, look into the eyes of Jesus on the cross. Look deep into his eyes. What when you look into his eyes, is there anything that he wouldn't do for you? First of all. And as you look into those eyes, is the response not, is there anything that would be too much for me to do in response? Very little should even be able to come to our minds. Because love's so powerful, so demanding on our soul, that it captivates us, draws our attention away from ourselves, can only create a response of love. So is there anything you'd like to add as we bring the conversation in?
Just coming back to home groups, we attended home group. In fact, we were in the same one when we got together in London, hey? True story. He was in our cell group.
She was my home group leader.
I was. And I have to say that the deepest relationships that we have are with the people either that we're serving in a group on a Sunday and in the home group. So I just want to encourage you, if you, and this actually isn't, I thought we were going to go with this, but anyway, if you are not in a home group, please have a look on the community group and see where you can get plugged in, because these are the people that you're going to do life with on a much deeper level than you would here. Because here, even if you're in a group, I mean in a team serving, it's very limited to the time that you've got. Whereas at the home group, you will talk about things that you'll go much deeper than you would here on a Sunday, and you'll get to do life, and you'll get to share in the joys and the sorrows and the things where you'll be able to ask people to pray for you, and where you'll be able to pray for people. So family, as much as Sundays love, I love Sundays, but we are limited to the time that we've got in the building together, whereas family will happen a lot more in the home group. So please, if you aren't in a group already, please look on the community group and see where you can get plugged in. It will take it'll take your sense of family. I don't say you walk with God necessarily, because hopefully that's strong, but your sense of family and your identity to a much deeper level. You will not regret it. So just find a space where you fit in. I just want to do a shout out quickly. Fiona has a group that she's opened her home. And Fiona's quiet. I mean, most of us know her, but we see her, but we don't hear her. But she has literally changed the lives, hasn't she, of the people that go to her group. The way that they have connected, and these women feel that they belong. They're like, I'm part of something wonderful. I'm in a family group, and I know that I'm covered, and I know that I'm loved, and I know that I'm important, and I know that I belong, and I know that I have a voice in somebody's life, and that people have a voice in my life. So that's just a small example. It's happening right here, where someone said, I'm going to open my home, and that's what they've done. It's practical, it's easy. So yeah, that's just my plug for home groups.
So just to draw the connection with why we're talking about home groups now, it wasn't planned, but the question is, what does love look like in the everyday?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. And to put some flesh on the skeleton of that idea, as a church, we are busy trying to build this amongst us. And one of the ways that we're trying to do it is with home groups. So to make love practical in the everyday, meet together. And we've got home groups as an option for how to do that. Kev?
You spoke about your exact words, your love expression. So my encouragement to everyone is to seek what your love expression is. It's different for all of us. But there's one thing that's the same for all of us, and it's going to cost you your time, it's going to cost you your talents, but it's well worth it, because in it is God working in and through you. And at the end of the day, it's to God's glory. So that's my encouragement to you guys, is find your love expression. For Natalie and I, It's that heart just to open our home. And because we're blessed to be a blessing, as God's word says. And everything that we have is not actually ours anyway. God has given it to us as a steward. So our time, our talents belongs to Him. And we're just stewarding it. So that's my challenge and my encouragement, is to find what your love expression is and pursue that.
Yeah, that's really good. And be free to do what you feel is the way God is moving in you. For Amanda, it looked like moving halfway around the world. For Scott, it looked like moving halfway around the world. Some of us are quite fortunate we might not have to do that. For some of us, it's opening our homes in a very deep and what's called it, long-lasting, long-term way. For others, it might be, I would like to start a group in my house once a week for 2 hours. Or it might actually be, I'm going to look to join a group once a week for 2 hours. Just I'm giving you practical ideas. Does anyone have any questions or comments that they would like to add into the mix before we close?
Sorry, I just want to add another very practical way of love lived, is Dee, who makes soup
Yes.
for the less fortunate in Lukwigni. It's something that she does. Dee is very, sorry, Dee, just put your hand up quickly. So this is Dee. That announcement about Dee's Kitchen, this is the lady who serves food, I don't know how many times a week, but she does it. She's seen a need in her area, and she is allowing God to work through her to meet those needs. So that's just another very practical way. So it looks different. There's no just one way.
Yeah. That's good.